Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to welcome each of you to today's featured Broker Hunter Career Webinar. When you're faced with a change, will you have a plan B? I am David Testerman, co-founder and managing partner of BrokerHunter.com, and will be your moderator for today's presentation, brought to us by Securities America. Before I get started and introduce our first speaker, though, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. We will be hosting a Q&A session at the very end of the formal presentation, so make sure to ask any questions you have along the way via the question pane on the webinar control panel. Also, there are a couple of handouts that are available to you as well to all participants, so make sure to check on your webinar control panel and you can download those as well. We also will be sending out an email at the end of the formal presentation with links to all of these also. So with the housekeeping items now taken care of, I'd like to introduce everyone to our first speaker today, Mr. Gary Bender with Securities America. Gary is the National Director of Recruiting and is going to be our first speaker today. Gary, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, David. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us for today's webinar. Today we're going to talk about having a plan B for your business, which is really more important now than ever. It's no secret that compliance costs have been on the rise as broker-dealers contend with increasing regulations. For many, the introduction of the Department of Labor's fiduciary rule in April is proving to be the tipping point as they are forced to make hard decisions about the future of their business. Even if you're with a broker-dealer that appears to be on solid footing, you need to be prepared for an unexpected change. The purpose of this presentation is not to convince you that you need a plan B and that you should automatically change to Securities America. Instead, we'll be showing you how to weigh your options to determine which broker-dealer is best for you and your clients, and if you have to make a change. Obviously, we'd like you to consider us in your decision-making process. Let's see, moving on. Building a business plan. Before you dive in and start researching what broker-dealer is the best choice to take your practice down the road, you need to know exactly where you'd like to go. That starts by building a comprehensive business plan, a vital tool that many businesses are lacking. A recent survey showed nearly 1/3 of small business owners have never developed a business plan. 64% of business owners who took the time to build a business plan grew their business, and just 43% of those without a plan managed to grow theirs. A thorough, well-developed business plan is the foundation of any Plan B kit. And for the sake of time, we're only going to touch on a few of the most important steps for building a business plan. There are many great resources online that can help you develop a long-range plan that is right for your firm. The key to any plan is knowing where it is that you want your practice to be, and not just 1, 5, 10, but maybe even 20 years down the road. When looking ahead, it's good to think big and qualitatively. Then review your firm's performance over the past few years and analyze it to see if it lines up with your long-range plans. A SWOT analysis can also be a valuable guide to evaluate your practice and the opportunities and threats you're facing in your market segment. Now, let's take a look at your unique value proposition to ensure it accurately reflects who you are and differentiates you from your competition. If you haven't drafted a unique value proposition or believe your current UVP could use an update, there are many really good resources out there. Then you really need to evaluate your market to ensure it's in the right place to achieve your goals. Next, you'll want to develop a marketing strategy that gets your message out to the right audience and in your market to generate leads and grow your current client base.
Well, good morning, or excuse me, good afternoon, everybody. This is Michael Belluomini here with Securities America. I'm going to pick up from here and talk about some of the actual strategies in developing the scorecard. So, as Gary mentioned, once you kind of have that business plan firmed up, the first step that we would always recommend is share that with your staff. Take a moment to get their input and make sure that they also understand the direction that you're trying to take your own individual practice, as well as sort of that firm or that larger organization if you're a part of one. At Securities America, we really encourage full transparency. I think one example of that is we do these regular quarterly town halls with all of our employees here in Omaha. That gives us a chance to sort of share our business plan and goals with the employees, and also give them some opportunities to share their ideas with our senior leadership. It's funny, but looking back, some of our best ideas from a technology perspective, or some of the things that we've done to improve the lives of our financial advisors, were ideas that came from our employees, especially frontline employees that heard those concerns or questions directly from the support staff in some of our advisors' offices. So once you have an idea of at least what that plan is going to look like and where you want to take the practice going forward, you get that buy-in from your staff. We talk about sort of the next step. So now it's time to, I'd say, narrow your focus on the broker-dealer you're looking for. And what, in my opinion, one of the most important first steps is let's carefully evaluate the ownership structure of the firm that you are choosing to look at or to affiliate with. So make sure that you have a really good idea if you want this future firm or this future partner to be either owned by a private equity firm, whether that's insurance owned or an insurance broker dealer, or if you're publicly traded or part of a larger organization. So once you have the direction you're taking your firm, it's time to actually make that scorecard. So first thing that we got to do is make a list of all the things that are most important to you, to your clients, and of course to your staff as well. So these are a few of the things that we would consider to be the largest buckets that you're going to separate those individual or more specific questions into. So obviously the fees and payout structure, culture, professional development and growth, technology, compliance, these are all monumentally important things to any financial advisor's practice. This is a starting point for us. You can certainly make your own scorecard, but as David mentioned at the very beginning of the webinar, you'll see on the handout section, we have our own version of the scorecard as well. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you choose to use ours. That's sort of a bonus just for participating in this webcast. I do think, though, it's very important to be as specific as possible when you go through this scorecard. Have a comprehensive and a very detailed list of the features, products, support that you're looking for from any future broker-dealer. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can use these buckets here to kind of categorize them. Now, on the next slide here, you're going to actually see, in our opinion, some of the more specific items. So, for example, if we're talking about technology, have an idea of what in technology actually matters to you. So having the ability to set up new accounts online, or having that consolidated dashboard that lets you see everything related to your account or to your branch office or to your client book of business. The mobile check deposits, this is becoming more and more important for younger advisors as well as clients. So having the ability to deposit that check directly into a brokerage account from an iPhone or an iPad or Android device. And I'd also say that most firms you're going to look at probably offer some sort of a technology demonstration. And I absolutely encourage everybody to take the opportunity to test drive any piece of technology that you're going to be using from now until into the foreseeable future. Make sure you have a really good idea of not only how this is going to impact your day-to-day, but more importantly, your staff, since they're probably the ones that are using this maybe even more often than you are. So moving on to just an example of this scorecard, this might seem relatively obvious, but once you have all those questions and all of those specific items you're looking for, map them out. So you put in broker-dealer number 1, 2, and 3 in a header, and put the little check boxes on each one, and keep a tally of who seems to be a good fit for you, your practice, and obviously what you're looking for in a partner going forward. Now, besides just some of the basics, it's a good idea to have some of those key questions that are important to you as well. So these are a couple of great examples that we get regularly. And it's funny, but most initial calls with prospective advisors, at the end of that first call, they often ask, all right, what questions am I not asking? Or what should I be looking into that maybe we haven't discussed in this first hour-long call? And I think these are just a few of those very important ones. So these are some that I think would apply to any broker-dealer out there. They're the things that you're going to need to have a pretty good understanding of before you make that decision or move forward. I also think it's a good idea to go back to step 1. Gary talked about building that vision and that value proposition. Use both of those items to help you kind of determine what these questions should be. So drill down, be a little bit more specific with these questions based on your individual value proposition and where you want to take your firm. So essentially, I think what we're talking about here is this is your chance to learn your prospective broker-dealer's unique value proposition. You've already developed yours, and you can communicate that to the client, but this is your chance now to go out and learn what your broker-dealer's value proposition is. How do they attract and retain financial advisors? So this is a great way to kind of get a feel for that. And I think also make sure you really focus on that culture. We're big believers here at Securities America that life is far too short to spend that time working with people that either you don't like or you don't trust. So it doesn't really matter how great our technology is or how great our practice management is if we don't have a feeling like there's some sort of mutual trust or a partnership there. So ask questions that really let you drill down and get a good idea for your future firm. These are a couple of more, in my opinion, very important questions to ask any prospective advisor. You'll see the second one right there is what's your payout and commission structure. Not only that, but ask them too, how often do you pay? It's amazing how often that question comes up. Make sure that you have a good idea of when the pay cycle works. And if you're doing advisory business, how are fees calculated and when are those fees paid out? Moving to step 3, let's talk about how to actually plan your move. So now you've got a good idea of the firms that maybe fit the criteria you're looking for. Now it's time to do this, what we call pre-transition planning. The more you can do ahead of time, obviously the better. There are folks that need to move in a short amount of time, but we would always recommend prudence and a more practical approach. So make sure that you've done some of this planning ahead of time so that if you need to put your plan B into effect, you're ready to go, or at least you have accurate expectations on what that next step looks like. So some of the things that to consider, obviously it's going to be very tempting to sort of shift the focus to the new broker-dealer and focus just on maybe the new bells and whistles or the new culture that you're going to be integrated within. But don't forget to kind of tie up those loose ends at your existing broker-dealer. One example of that obviously is understand your current broker-dealer's privacy policy. So I should put a caveat in here. It depends obviously on what state you're in. Certain states have unique privacy policies as well. But if your broker-dealer has a favorable sharing or privacy policy arrangement, then your new broker-dealer may be able to complete some of the new account paperwork for you after affiliation. Obviously, they can't do that until you are affiliated with the new broker-dealer. But that's certainly something that's very important to note. Also, if you're coming out of a captive environment or a wirehouse, make sure that you have a very good understanding or clear understanding on if your new broker-dealer and your current broker-dealer have both signed that broker protocol document. And I would also recommend, if you don't already have a securities attorney or legal counsel, if you are leaving a captive environment or a more wirehouse environment, make sure you've at least retained counsel or had a conversation where somebody can review your individual privacy policy and also more than likely some sort of a non-solicitation or a non-compete agreement. Like your scorecard in the early stages of the search, you're going to need a detailed checklist that can guide you step by step through the transition period. So that checklist really is not just sort of put a check in the box, but this is your chance to kind of build out that timeline or that calendar as well. So have a good understanding of every step in that process. You know, it doesn't just start with choosing a broker-dealer and end with you coming on board. There's a lot of steps sort of in between, like the due diligence process, the licensing process, transition planning with your new broker-dealer's transition department, a lot of things that need to be in place. So make sure that you have a very clear understanding of what the process looks like at whatever your potential new broker-dealer is. And also make sure you develop, obviously, that timeline of what's most ideal for you in your practice. Obviously, if you decide to put the plan B in motion, you want to make sure that in our experience, you've got at least a 4 to 6 week lead time after you've made that decision to adequately prepare both your clients and your staff to make this as seamless as possible. Also, ask your whatever new broker-dealer that you choose, ask them if they have a transition guide. We've got a document that's it's a 45, 50-page soup to nuts, start to finish approach to transition. Ask whatever new broker-dealer that you've chosen if they have a document like that, something that at least for those more analytically inclined amongst us, you have something that you can refer to if you do kind of want to get into the details. You'll want to make the decision on how you're going to notify clients. So are we talking about direct mail pieces, whether that's the new account form to each individual client, or whether you're going to do some sort of a client signing party or tie this around a client appreciation event. It could be personal visits individually with each one of your advisors, or if you're coming out of a captive environment and you do not have the ability to solicit or go after these clients individually, you may need to rely on a tombstone ad or those more reactive clients that are going to contact you. But have a good idea of how this is going to work. I also think it's important to note that this is a great time to prune your book. So if you're making a move and you decide to enact that plan B, this might be a great opportunity to do that sort of 80-20 analysis. Find those clients that you spend an awful lot of time in that are not driving revenue or maybe are not a great fit for that unique value proposition you developed back in step one. And if they're not, this is a great time to part ways or help them find new representation or a new financial advisor. You might not ever have to change broker-dealers. I think all of us would love to find that perfect fit and stay there until we retire. But it's certainly better to be prepared than have to face the unexpected without a plan in place. And I think as this quote from three-time Indy 500 winner Bobby Unser indicates, success is not the result of luck. Certainly it is the product of being prepared when that right opportunity does present itself. So to help you get started with building out this plan B, we are offering these two documents that you see here in the webinar, the BD Scorecard and a transition timeline document. These should be extremely helpful to you, at least to start the process of talking about a plan B or having that plan B in place. But if you would like to get a hold of us, please feel free to learn more about us or about our firm either at our website, securitiesamerica.com. Call us today at 800-989-8441. And with that, David, we'll go ahead and turn this over to any questions.
All right, great job. Thanks so much, guys. That was very good. All right, we've got some questions here from the audience, and I think some of these are very timely given what's going on currently in the market. But a question for either of you, what impact do you feel the DOL rule coming up will have on smaller broker-dealers?
Well, I think that this is Gary Bender. I'll take that question, and then I'll let Michael follow up with his thoughts. But with the smaller broker dealers, just really don't have the scale and the capital to be able to put the appropriate procedures in place to handle these new rules. So we're seeing a lot more of the smaller broker dealers or independently owned broker dealers contacting us because they want to, really get out from underneath having to try to prepare for those impending rules, and it's really easy for them to tuck under or partner with a larger firm such as Securities America and be a branch or a super OSJ within our organization. So I think it's going to be very difficult for a lot of these smaller firms to continue to meet the new benchmarks of the new rule.
This is Michael. I think it's, we've seen already with this proposed rule the lowering of the threshold for class action lawsuits, and where clients could be bound to arbitration from the get-go and generally was a little bit more industry favorable arbitration panel, now are going through the litigation process. And we've seen the Department of Labor mention that they plan on plaintiffs' counsels serving as sort of the judiciary or the enforcement arm of this new regulation. And I think, in my opinion, the first time we see a class action lawsuit off the BICE exemption of the BICE contract, or the first time we see major litigation aimed at one of these smaller broker-dealers where the plaintiffs' counsel win, we're going to see an exodus of a lot of these very, very small broker-dealers that maybe realize that the cost-benefit just isn't there anymore.
That's very good. We're seeing the same thing on our end as well. I think you nailed it on the head. I think you'll see a lot of broker dealers have that very same thing, that the margins are thin enough as it is without looming litigation coming down the pipeline. This kind of another question along the same theme here, but where are you all seeing most of the traction right now in the recruiting market?
So I'll take this one. I think there's two avenues or ways that advisors are coming to Securities America. The first is what we've sort of traditionally called the outgrown my broker-dealer. Several advisors that have substantial books of business or assets under management that have been with a smaller broker-dealer for most of their career have found that they kind of need somebody to help them take that next step. So whether that's the technology that is lacking or the ability to hit that next threshold in GDC and they're looking for a consultant or coach to help them get there, or maybe it's just a more flexible advisory plan, something that allows them to grow and flourish as an advisor. We've seen quite a few folks from those smaller broker-dealers looking for a little bit more sophisticated approach or a larger entity that can provide that scale. Now, the flip side of that, I think the other place that we've been extremely successful is the extremely large broker-dealers or the complexes. I've personally worked with many advisors that have been 20, 22-year veterans of a firm that used to be 1,500 advisors that is now 10 times that size, that say, I remember the days when I had that personal connection with the executive staff or the middle management or even the frontline employees. And I've gotten to a point now where I feel like a number and I'm a little bit lost in that shuffle. So folks that are looking for a return to the culture that they grew up in and really grew to love, those are the two avenues. So the very, very big and the very, very small. I know it seems like a binary choice, but that is really where we've seen a lot of traction.
Very good. Can you talk a little bit about Securities America in general? A question here is, who owns Securities America?
We're actually owned by Ladenburg Thalmann, and they're the longest-standing member of the New York Stock Exchange. They have offices in New York and in Miami. They've owned Securities America for about 6 years now, and it's been a great partnership. Ladenburg Thalmann really provides a lot of resources to not only the Securities America's reps, but the 4 other broker-dealers that they own, as well as they own a trust company, which allows the advisors to have access to trust services. We've got IMOs that provides access to insurance marketing organizations, as well as our own bond desk, and then finally Ladenburg Thalmann Asset Management for those, if you happen to have that $10 to $20 million client event that you really need some help to prevent that from going to one of the major wirehouses. Did I miss anything on that, Michael?
Ladenburg Thalmann & Co. So there's still the old line investment banking firm that sits in New York City, and that I think is a differentiator for us. Is we're able to offer access to capital markets products, syndicate offerings, IPOs, things that we always refer to as it's another tool in the toolkit. Most advisors would not take advantage of those investment banking products or opportunities, but we do have them available to advisors if they need them.
Very good. That's great. I do have a specific product question here from an audience member asking about, and this is probably a general theme here, what types of insurance products do you allow? But specifically here, do you all allow any non-asset fee variable annuity business, or is there any type of insurance business, I guess, that would not be permitted?
I think we take a pretty generalist approach to insurance business. We regard fixed or traditional insurance business as an outside business activity. So we do have, I believe, 5 insurance marketing organizations that we view as premier partners. So these are folks that offer some sort of a download into our systems or participate maybe in some industry events with us that advisors are free to use. We also allow advisors to run that business outside. So if it's a true traditional insurance or fixed product, then that can be run away from our purview. We would never see that business. Specific variable annuity products, that would probably be better for an individual conversation just to make sure that we're talking the same thing. But we have, I think if you look at the variable annuity universe, we're probably talking about 98% of the available product are going to be on platform here. And then traditional fixed, it truly is open architecture.
All right, very good. And I guess, while we're waiting for some additional questions, what type of advisor is best served? I know it sounds like you guys handle kind of extremes and ends of the market both ways, both the very large complexes or OSJ offices as well as the small individual practitioner or the solo practitioner. Can you talk a little bit about your minimum requirements? I guess what would be a good partnership for Securities America?
Yeah, David, I love that question. I think our ideal candidate fits into a couple of different categories. We're looking for somebody that wants to make this their last stop. So somebody that's looking for that true partnership, not a conduit, not somebody that says, find me the broker-dealer that never calls me, I never have to talk to, all they do is process my commissions. There are some great firms out there that do that. There's probably 1,000 great firms out there that do that. We pride ourselves in being a lot more than that and offering quite a bit of additional value. So somebody that's looking for a true partnership, and what I really mean by that is somebody that's looking to grow. So growth does not necessarily mean help me get from 500,000 to $1 million next year. It could also mean help me prepare for succession or continuity planning, help me grow an associate advisor underneath me, help me make sure that I'm running the most profitable, efficient, satisfying practice I can. So somebody that wants to make this their last stop, looking for that partnership, wants to grow. I would also say it's important, somebody that either does a considerable amount of advisory business or is transitioning that way would also be very important to us. That's clearly where the industry is being pushed, especially most recently by the Department of Labor. We're probably going to see an SEC fiduciary rule within the next year or two as well. I'd be shocked if we don't. So as we move more and more towards this advisory model, obviously folks that are looking for help and expertise in getting there, or folks that are already doing a considerable amount of that business would be a great fit for us. So I know it's a general thing, but really somebody that we can 15 years from now look back on a very successful partnership and track their growth and their success. I think that's exactly what we're looking for.
Well, very good. That's a great answer. Here's a specific question here that I think is very good as well. What aspects of the new DOL conflict of interest rule do you feel like will most impact, your broker-dealer as well as maybe just some other ones out there?
I think the idea of level competition. We've seen sort of a dialing back of the original plan proposal from last year that make this a little bit more palatable. But the idea of level competition is not I charge 1% to the client pays 1% and that's it. That level competition obviously refers to all arrangements within the broker-dealer up to the clearing firm and any subsidiaries and product partners. So this is a very, very wide-ranging approach to changing how many of the things that we offer to our advisors and that advisors in turn offer to clients are subsidized. So as every one of those payment flows needs to be unwound or levelized, and then, to be frank, one of the beauties of the independent space, we've got 2,200 advisors, we have 2,200 business models. The same kind of goes for product partners and clearing firms and technology companies. So if we have to standardize as much of that as possible, and frankly, I think what's going to happen is as you see some of these costs being shifted, advisors are going to have conversations with their clients on raising fees. And I think that's an unfortunate aspect of this Department of Labor regulation. So that subsidized approach to tickets or preferred sponsor revenue or marketing dollars directly to advisors, 12B1 fees and retirement accounts, these are all things that are going to be unwound or changed drastically in the next, 4 months is 5 months, I guess, in the near term. Obviously, January 2018 would be the next deadline. And as we see increased pressure, that's going to be a major aspect that I think a lot of advisors maybe haven't been exposed to yet.
Yeah, certainly a lot of unknowns out there. Next question: Are you all registered in all 50 states?
We are. And also in Puerto Rico.
Okay, in Puerto Rico, and is
Yes,
okay, awesome. That's good. That's good. And I'm trying to look see if we have any more questions here real quick. And while we're waiting on those, are there any last closing items you all would want to touch upon before we end today's call?
No, I think we did a great job of covering it. This is like continuity planning for your own practice. This should be part of that continuity plan, not just what happens to you if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, but also what happens if your broker-dealer gets hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow. So I think this is important that everybody should have in place.
Very good. That's great, and it's something that they can benefit from whether they're making a transition or not to go ahead and start that process. Well, thank you very much, guys, for the presentation, and I'd like to thank each of the audience members out there today as well. This webinar has been recorded, and we will be sending out a link to view this recording later today, as well as links to download the handouts as well if you'd like to get those again also. Also going to ask for a post-meeting survey, so any feedback you have about the content today, we would be greatly appreciated. And if for some reason we did not get to your question today, Securities America representative will follow up and answer any questions you might have. So keep an eye out for the email later today, and I again want to thank everybody for your time. This concludes today's webinar, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Goodbye.